Hi there. Clocking the vise. That's the next task, or the first task I should say. Here we have a vise, and as you can see it's not sitting straight. So this back jaw must line up with the X movement of the table. There's a few steps to this. So first and foremost is to make sure the base of the vise and the table itself are free of debris. Next we can slide it forwards. It does fit into a slot, but as you can see there's a bit of movement. So our job is to make that movement zero. So use these clamping screws on either side. One there and one there. It is essential that the vise is properly clocked. As I say, the back jaw lies parallel to the X movement of the table. Otherwise, if you're modifying a part, you're going to struggle. So there are a couple of tools. We need a chuck and we need a flick gauge or a verdict gauge or a dial gauge. They're all the same thing. As you can see, when you move the little lever at the bottom, the dial spins. And this will tell us how close to being straight the vise is. So we'll insert the chuck after giving it a wipe into the spindle. The gauge then goes into the chuck, like so. Now that that's tight, we can bring the vise towards the flick gauge and start to engage the dial. Okay, once it's on, I'll zoom in so you can see it. Now that's on, we're going to move the vise from left to right. As you can see, there's quite a lot of movement. I mean, we're probably 0.18 inches there. This is a very old gauge, it is in inches. But it's a question of back and forth, knocking the vise until you are satisfied that the needle is not going to move. This process may take half an hour, but once the vise is clocked, then you're able to do your job. Okay. So it looks like I've just about found it. I'm now engaging the feed, as that's a more steady way to move the vise. Well, the table, and therefore the vise. Final tap. And if I zoom in here, in the way, we should see as the vise moves from left to right underneath the tool, there is little movement. There is slight movement. That's because the gauge is very sensitive and the jaw itself has slight imperfections in it. However, the extreme left and the extreme right are reading the same, then that is a clocked vise. Once we're happy at that, it's time to tighten it down. So I've got one side tightened already, tighten the other side, and that's how you clock a vise. Your jobs can now be made safe in the knowledge that things will be square to each other.